Isharagyam paro dharmo he artanamati nigraha ata enam vadishami bhutadruham satamam Isharagyam paro dharmo he artanamati nigraha Atainam vadishami bhutadruham satamam. Please chant. Isharagyam paro dharmo yatanamati nigraha Atainam vadishami bhutadruham satamam. Isharagyam paro dharmo yatanamati nigraha Atainam vadishami bhutadruham satamam. Isharagyam paro dharmo yatanamati nigraha Atainam vadishami bhutadruham satamam. Okay, translation we can. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and rebirth, when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Okay, purport. If yeah, go please, sure.
There is some disturbance caused by wild animals in a village or town, the police or others take action to kill them. Similarly, it is the duty of the government to kill at once all bad social elements, such as thieves, dacoits, and murderers. The same punishment is also due to animal killers, because the animals of the state are also the praja. Praja means one who has taken birth in the state, and this includes both men and animals. Any living being who takes birth in a state has the primary right to live under the protection of the king. The jungle animals are also subject to the king, and they also have a right to live. So what to speak of domestic animals like the cows and bulls? So someone else do the next one.
Any living being, if he terrifies other living beings, is a most wretched subject, and the king should at once kill such a disturbing element, as the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances. Similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. By the law of the Supreme Lord, all living beings, in whatever shape they may be, are the sons of the Lord, and no one has the right to kill an animal unless it is so ordered by the codes of natural law. The tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God, who has created the law that a living being subsists by eating another living being. Thus the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. And the Upanishads direct that one should live by the direction of the Lord and not at one's sweet will. A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits, milks ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food, save and expect in particular cases.
The illusioned king or executive head, even though sometimes advertised as a great philosopher and learned scholar, will allow slaughterhouses in the state without knowing that torturing poor animals clears the way to hell for such foolish kings or executive heads. The executive head must always be alert to the safety of the prajas, both man and animal, and inquire whether a particular living being is harassed at any place by another living being. The harassing living being must at once be caught and put to death, as shown by Maharaj Parikshit.
Wait, let's just pause there for a little bit. I just want to go back to text 1. Let's see here. Text 1 is, Sutta Goswami said, after reaching that place, Maharaj Parikshit observed that a lower caste Shudra, dressed like a king, was beating a cow and bull with a club as if they had no owner. I found that really interesting that the person is described as a lower caste Shudra dressed as the king. Who can tell me why he's being described in this way? Why do you think? Max.
Oh yeah, right here. Okay. Because in the Kali Yuga, everybody's a Sudra, including the leadership of society. So the leaders are dressing like kings, but they're actually Sudras.
Exactly. They're without this Brahminical culture, right? They don't have the qualities of a Shudra. I mean, Kshatriya, sorry. They have the qualities of a Shudra. The Kshatriya and Shudras? Well, Shudras are the working class men, and then the Kshatriyas, they're the administrators, the kings, like government, they're ruling, like rule the state, right? So, is that okay? So the Kshatriyas, their duty is to provide for the citizens, right? As we saw here in the purport, it said that it's their duty to provide for the prajas, right? The living entities. But what we are forgetting, and what is clearly illustrated here, is that the prajas, the living entities, it includes everything, right? It's not just human beings, it's the animals as well. So he's behaving like a Shudra because he's not protecting all living entities, right? He's beating the cow and the bull. And modern politicians, as Max said, they are also Shudras pretending to be Kshatriyas. They lack this understanding of religious principles. They don't understand how to protect their living entities, right? The duty of our modern politicians are supposed to be to create this environment that is favorable to practice religious principles, but they want to keep church and state separate, right? So that's the main thing, right? They don't understand that praja, it entails all living entities. It's not just human beings.
So, materialists identify with all these different material designations, such as gender, race, nationality, their bodies, and this lack of knowledge of their true self leads to so many different forms of discrimination and a deep misunderstanding of who they really are. And then also identifying with matter will eventually introduce people to the miseries of the material world. And there are 4 types of people that generally approach Krishna. So those who are distressed, those who are have financial problems, inquisition, and wisdom. And so from what I know, the majority of people approach Krishna through distress, and these reasons for approaching Krishna can also initiate the process of self-inquiry. And when Krishna sees our endeavor, he will support us, as Prabhupada said in class yesterday, that when we take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards us. And as we become more purified, Krishna will reveal himself more and more. And so when we understand that we are not these temporary bodies and that we are eternal spirit souls, we can begin to understand that we've probably had many different bodies over the span of so many different lifetimes according to our karma. So the transmigration of the soul. And so then Prabhupada said that the human body is specifically meant for self-realization. So who am I? Why am I here? Why do I suffer? And where do I come from? And then if the goal of our lives is to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, then we're acting no better than animals. And since we are eternal spirit souls, we are part and parcel of Krishna, we have an eternal relationship with Krishna that we've been neglecting as a result of being distracted by our conditioning that we've been accumulating throughout various lifetimes. And so once we understand that we are eternal and that we have this eternal relationship with Krishna, then we can start to cultivate this spiritual knowledge, spiritual vision, and we can begin to see all different beings beyond their material designations and in relation to Krishna. So we can try to see all beings through Krishna's eyes as his devotees, and this will help us extend this causeless compassion and love that Krishna showers us with to all other living beings, or at least we can try. And this will also help solve so many worldly problems that are prevalent in the world today, namely war, people competing for power and control, and corrupt people in power, unqualified people in power. And war can start with what or who we put on our plate, because what we consume affects our consciousness. And Prabhupada, there's a quote by Prabhupada, this is Srimad Bhagavatam 8.8.11, and he said, as long as human society continues to allow cows to be regularly killed in slaughterhouses, there cannot be any question of peace or prosperity.
Okay, so what Via is saying that when we identify with the body, we're unable to really use our discrimination properly. I mean, we discriminate, but in a really perverted way, right? We identify with our bodies, and then there's racism, there's sexism, there's all these types of isms, you know? So when we identify with the body, we're not able to really properly discriminate. And then we allow animal slaughter, we allow animal cruelty. And that obviously affects our consciousness, and it leads to these bigger problems like wars and COVID and all of these things. You know, this is our karmic reaction for how we have been treating the animals, right? And this is because there's a lack of understanding of the laws of nature, right? It says in the purport that a tiger can eat another living entity because that's what a tiger does. A tiger is allowed to do that for subsistence, sorry. But a human being doesn't have to do that, because you can survive as a human being on plants, right? You don't have to eat meat, it's not necessary. I mean, there's that verse in Bhagavad Gita, you know, where Krishna says, if one offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even water, he will delightfully partake, right? Nowhere is he asking for another living entity, you know? Krishna is making it very clear that you can survive with what I can survive off of, you know? So when we identify with the body and we're unable to properly discriminate, and we allow animal cruelty, it desensitizes us towards violence, right? Eventually we just we get used to violence because we're eating it, you know, it's in our consciousness because we're eating slaughtered animals. We take on their pain. And we also kind of see it, and when you see something enough, it just becomes normal. You normalize it, you know, and it's not really something that should be normalized. So again, this is like we're unable to discriminate between what is right and wrong. It's so strange. We can kind of do it in a very small, very tiny little way, in that we'll protect dogs, we'll protect cats, you know, there are like laws, you'll get fines or you'll get jail time if you injure certain types of animals. But if it's like a cow or a wild animal, you know, in South Africa, there's like a lot of people that hunt the giraffes and the zebras and stuff like that, you know, it's a real big thing. It's like a hunting sport. But that for some reason is like, oh, that's okay, you know? So it's like we kind of are able to discriminate, but not in a real proper way, you know? Because it's still like, oh, these ones are higher than these. And it's like, why? Everything is all our living entities, right? And then Via mentioned that when we allow slaughterhouses and animal cruelty, this leads to bigger issues. It leads to the racisms, the sexisms, the isms, all the wars and stuff. And Prabhupada said, there was this one little phrase that Prabhupada used that I really liked. He said that wars are wholesale slaughters, right? It's wholesale slaughter, because that's just our own karmic reaction, because that's what we've been doing to the animals, and now we're doing it to ourselves, right? Because if you can't discriminate between the living entities, the ones that you see less than yourself, you will always think of yourself higher and higher than something else, and eventually it'll be humans, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna start killing each other, you know? And that is our collective karmic reaction. COVID happened because of our collective karmic reaction, right? So there's this link between animal cruelty and violence, right? We can see that. It's pretty clear. Prabhupada has mentioned it many times in the Bhagavad Gita that animal protection, specifically cow protection, is really important. And it's not just Vedic culture that has made this link. Modern science has actually also shown that there's a link between animal cruelty and violence, right? If you're open to animal cruelty, or if you committed some type of offenses towards animals, you're more likely to become like a domestic abuser or a serial killer or something like that, you know. Little tangent. At one point, I had a little bit of an obsession with serial killers. I found them very interesting. They're really interesting because they're so intelligent, and I just couldn't understand, why are you using your powers for evil? You know, like, you have such intelligent minds. I really went into like their methods and what they did, and it was very fascinating. But the common denominator was always that they started on animals. They all started on animals, you know, and it's brutal, you know. It's not just like they kind of killed an animal. They were just very specific in their manners, you know. And it's like, if you're able to do that to an animal, you know, okay, I was going to give an example, but it's kind of gruesome, so I'm not going to. But I mean, if you're able to do that to an animal and you're fine, then there's nothing to stop you from doing that to other living entities, you know. So I found that really interesting, that that was pretty much the common denominator for all the serial killers that I researched, and there were quite a few. So yeah, they all have this propensity to be God, to have the power. It's like, I have this power over you, you know? So yeah, they had this need to enjoy.
And so when is violence justified? So the role of a Kshatriya is to protect their praja, which, as Dasi said, includes not only humans but animals as well. And so violence can be used in Krishna's service when its used for a higher purpose, such as protecting the praja and eradicating the source of the violence to the praja.
Yeah, it says that in the purport, I believe, that, you know, Maharaj Parikshit, he was saying that he has to kill this person now because he is beating or treating an animal cruelly, right? So violence can be used in Krishna's service, but that's not something that we really have the intelligence to execute. So this really actually shows the importance of the Varnashram system, right? Does everyone know what the Varnashram system is? Yeah, Bruce? You know what it is? Kind of? Okay, so it's Vana, which is like the social division. So it's your brahmanas, which are like your priestly class, you know, and then your kshatriyas, which is your administration, your government, your vaishyas, which is like your merchants and stuff, and then your shudras, your lower working class. And then the ashrams, the different stages of life, which is brahmachari, A lot of you guys are in that stage. Grihastha, then Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Okay? So I'm saying that it's showing the importance of the Varnashram system because in the Varnashram system, the Brahmanas, they're kind of, they're the ones who distribute the knowledge. They're the ones who's kind of in charge. It's so funny, this topic actually came up earlier this week. Gopi and I went to Mahatma Prabhu, and for some reason, they were discussing war. And then it went into how it's because of the way that we treat animals. And the reason that wars actually happen is because people, they just seek money and power, right? And if we were in this Varnashram system, if we were able to execute it properly, the Brahmanas would be in charge of, the Lakshmi and distributing it. And then the Kshatriyas would be executing the orders of the Brahmanas, instead of making their own decisions like, oh, I want power. And the Vaishyas and the Shudras would be in their place in society, So it really just shows how important it is to kind of have these systems, actually. But it's a little hard for us in this time, this age of Kali. It's a little hard for us to have this Varnashram system and have it perfectly worked out for us. So what do you think we can do in this age of Kali? What is it that we can do to help with... Do you want to say something?
Yes, and in answer to your question, a couple of things to be looked at. The Brahmanas actually don't control society in Varnashram, nor do they handle money. Yes, for Brahmanas, those things are actually beneath them. So they relegate those things to the Kshatriyas. And the Kshatriyas actually are those persons who direct society, just like in the Bhagavad Gita. Whenever Krishna wanted to reestablish Varnashram in Parampara, he spoke to a Kshatriya instead of a Brahmana. During that time, Maharaj, Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, and a host of other sages were present, but they weren't considered even as far as the recipients of Parampara. It was actually spoken to a Kshatriya, because Prabhupada explains in the purport that it was their responsibility to implement that within society. So to your last question in terms of what we could do is to train actual Kshatriyas, because those are the persons who give the scope of Bhagavad Gita and such to society. There's, of course, in the Mahabharata, there's lots of examples, but those are principles there.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, and thank you for the correction. But Prabhu is absolutely correct. It's to train Kshatriyas, right? I was going to make it a bit more simplified, and I was going to say preaching, but yes, that is how we would train Kshatriyas, right? We would preach. It's like what Gopal Prabhu was saying in his class. He said that these students, here that we are distributing prasadam to, they're our future leaders. They're going to be the future leaders of the country, of the world. And we want to, as Prabhu said, train them. We want to preach to them so that we can put godly men in government. Prabhupada said that when the government is made up of godly men, there will be no more slaughterhouses, right? So the way to put godly men in government is to preach to the current students who will one day be in government.
So in conclusion, we should also practice what we're preaching so that we can experience what's real, and what's real is that we're not our bodies. And then we can share our experiences with others after we become convinced ourselves. And all of us know theoretically that we're not our bodies, but it's another thing when we realize that we're not our bodies, and then we can imbibe that and apply that fact to everyday life. And so cultivating the spiritual vision, seeing all beings beyond their material designations, and this also helped resolve so many problems, so many worldly problems, and that society and the world is facing today that manifest when we identify with matter.
Just to go back to the point about preaching, there are many ways to do it. The best way is obviously Harinam Sankirtan. We just go out, we distribute books, we distribute the holy name. But how do we do it here at Krishna House? How do we do our preaching? Other than, our Tuesday and Friday program. Yes. Hey.
I try to think that just smiling and being present with students at Krishna Lunch goes a long way. And just because a lot of people are disconnected, and to just try to connect with people, people feel that and helps them.
That's true, that's fair. I think people really appreciate it when we give them our genuine attention, Yes, Jonathan.
Yeah, I had the realization one of the Saturday nights on the football game when we were doing Harinam that we literally have a tailor-made opportunity to preach Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission to people that will be engaged with it and that'll be even inspired by it. And from observing the times that I've observed, besides just participating in them, there's a lot more positive response than negative naysayers. But like Kalakanta Das said, they just hate us because they want to be us.
Yeah. There's, Max?
Book distribution could be a big one. There was a girl back in the Denver temple. Her name was Maya, M-A-I-A, so not illusion, Maya. But when she would Uber drive for people, she would always carry Bhagavad Gitas and small books in her car, and she would play kirtan in the car. So in that way, she was distributing to almost all her clients, and it actually got her good tips too. So book distribution is a great way to bring more intelligent people, and I mean, not just intelligent people, but everybody. Way to bring even more people to the movement is through the books.
Yeah. So I'm actually looking for a very specific answer. And I mean, what is our main service here at Krishna? Prashadam distribution. Yeah. Don't overlook Prashadam distribution. It's a very, very good way to preach, actually. Because if we can say that consuming meat and other living entities affects our consciousness, what to say of how Prashadam can affect our consciousness, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of powerful. I know Kalakansa Prabhu, one time he was explaining what he's thinking with every scoop, it's like one more human breath, one more human breath, one more human breath. It's very powerful. It creates a huge like a shift in their life as soon as they start taking. It's a very powerful thing, and they have no idea what they're even eating. So it's a very easy way to preach as well, without having to. I don't know. Some people are not as inclined to receiving preaching through means of like lecturing or hearing orally. So this is a very easy to just inject people with love for Krishna.
Yeah, I mean, if you're too shy to go out on books and Harinam, just give someone some prashadam, smile, walk away. It'll work. Just keep doing it. It softens the heart, Eventually they'll be open to reading Bhagavad Gita. I mean, it's hard to distribute Bhagavad Gita. It's not hard to distribute prashadam. So yeah, that's a really important preaching opportunity, and you should really relish it when you're out there on Krishna Lunch, Know that you're actually helping these souls. You're actually helping them to purify them so that we can preach to them the science of Krishna consciousness, so that we can put godly people in government, so that we can eventually stop all slaughter. Okay. Are there any questions, comments? Oh, many. Okay. Brahmamrita?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, just on the keeping with the Krishna lunch prashadam distribution program, it also gets people to chant like anything. I mean, the amount of times I've heard people say things like, Krishna is my life. I can't live without Krishna. I don't know how I'll survive without Krishna. Krishna's hearing this and they're saying it and they're thinking, oh, like I can't live without Chipotle. They're seeing it that way. They're seeing it the same way. But Krishna's hearing this and he's like, oh yeah? Is that how you feel? Like that.
Yeah, that's very true. There were so many hands. Nita? Shooting. Oh. Yeah, please.
Yeah, on that point of Krishna lunch, yeah, there's so many times where students just by taking prasadam, there was this one student, he told us that, he said, even if I'm having a bad day, if I'm angry, I know that if I go to Krishna lunch, I'm gonna feel better. Like they feel it in their consciousness, and then there are so many stories. And one time, Guru Garanga Prabhu is a lawyer. He and his mother, they went to this financial, like a financial manager in Miami, and they were dressed as regular people, and she noticed his neck beads. So when his mother stepped out, the financial manager started talking to him, and she said, "Are you Hare Krishna?" He said, "Yes." And she said, "For 4 years, I went to University of Florida, and I survived on Krishna lunch." Mm-hmm. And so, they have a lot of sympathy for Krishna lunch. But yeah. But on another point about the Varnashram system, Hridanda Maharaj was giving a talk in Texas, and he was talking about, Prabhupada called it a headless society. The current society, there's no head. So one of Prabhupada's vision was to create a Brahminical culture, to have Brahmanas. And but all those classes are needed, and you need the churches for sure. Well, you need the head also to kind of direct the body, but then you can't just have a head that's floating around either. The head needs arms to go do something, or guide the arms to do something. So yeah. Anyways, it just made me think of that point Marsh brought up in class.
Yeah, I mean, they all really do work together. Yeah. Okay, so Jonathan's hand first.
On the point of the blueprint of what creates a serial killer.
My bad.
No, this is very relevant. The other thing besides the animals is they come from, the majority of them come from fatherless homes with overbearing, abusive, religious mothers. And then, they start to take it out on animals, and it progresses. So I also think one of the keys to creating a strong society is strong households with strong vegetarian men. And my question is, that's my comment. Let the man do it. That's okay. You can let us throw garbage in the trash can and change out trays. My question is about vegetarianism, about when people say, well, we're so overpopulated with cows, or we're so overpopulated with deers and chickens. It would honestly, it's it's a service, to get rid of them, things like that.
Oh, did you want to answer that? Okay, sure.
Forcibly breeding them at such an alarming rate, breeding them together, a more balanced amount of cows in the world.
Cloning's real.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And if we understood the laws of nature and just abide by them, then it would be fine. People will find any excuse to do what they want. So if you just understand the laws of nature and that you don't have to kill cows and other living entities for your own pleasure, then the world will still keep turning. There are way too many things. Yes.
Thank you for your class, and thank you for bringing up those points regarding Varnashram. In Prabhupada's comparative, in 1977, in Prabhupada's comparative examination of the Brahminical training that ISKCON is directed towards and the potential for Varnashram, he made the statement that what we've done so far has been insignificant in regards to the potential for changing society by Varnashram. His exact statement was that if we are to, he said, what we're doing now is, this is small scale, and if we want to do it globally, then we have to do it systematically, and he referred to that as Varnashram. He made that reference. So getting back to your point, actually Shruti's point, in terms of the essential parts for that, we have some part of it. We have Brahminical training. The other missing part is Kshatriya training. Those are like parents, like to go to Jonathan's statement. For human society, the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas are like the parents of human society. Vaishyas will never organize. They have to, they have a tendency to get out of control more so. And Sudras, of course, they're clueless in certain regards. They are not the organizers of society, but the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. And so those roles are very, very important. In that regard, we're Hare Krishna and Dasi, who did the original compilation of speaking about Varnashram. We're working together on the second book, dealing with that relationship of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. So it's really important for all members of ISKCON to understand the position of Varnashram as Srila Prabhupada saw it as far as the potential. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And just going back to one other question, I had a question, something you said, and I didn't catch it exactly what you said in regards to violence. Because there has to be a section of society that's trained up to be violent in order to curb violence. This is like this is what, after all, Bhagavad Gita was spoken on a battlefield, where God told his devotee to kill a bunch of people, and he actually did. So there, violence is part, even of modern society. We have a section of people who are trained up how to be violent, and we expect them if we had to call someone, not to come with some shastra and speak, but we expect them to come with the other shastra, the weapons, in order to curb the violence.
Yes, just on that, I know that it was mentioned that violence is justified in the service of Krishna, but not anyone can just go out and be violent and be like, oh, it's for Krishna, You obviously, you have to be trained in that for sure. Yeah. Okay. There are too many hands, but Max is super excited. So no, wait. It's gonna be Max, Bruce, and then okay, Bruce. Okay, Bruce.
Hare Krishna. So in this society, a lot of people protest against things that they don't want. They don't have like something that they want though, like a focus point. With the Harinam, it's like we're protesting Krishna consciousness, and it's what we want. It's good. It's not protesting against what we don't want, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of people protesting, the wars and all of these things, and like they want all of this freedom, all of this equality and whatnot. But it's just because they're like hyper focused on something, just this one tiny little thing, instead of looking at the big picture, instead of taking a step back and realizing that there's more to it. You're just focused on this one tiny little thing. And if you just take a step back and realize that it's more than just like, oh, we need equality for like all people, Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, whatever, they're too hyper-focused on this one particular point that they don't realize that all these issues arise from the fact that we don't treat all living beings equally. We don't treat them with respect. So how can we treat each other with respect?
They have to get to the root cause of the problems.
Yeah. But that's too hard because then they have to look within. Copy.
Just wanted to mention we've brought it up briefly, I think, in a previous class, but you were saying that you treat animals a certain way, and then that filters down to how you treat humans. And one of the most striking examples of that is the Holocaust, the Jewish Holocaust. Yep. And there are actually some Jewish Holocaust survivors who then became animal activists because they realized that everything that was used on them was used on the animals right before. And it actually goes as far as that some of the train carts that the Jews were transported in were cattle carts that were used for cattle just before that. So really thick.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just make a quick other comment. Sorry. I have a bone to pick. It's not hard to distribute Bhagavad Gita. We can show you easily how to do it, and I'm hoping that I'm hoping that, not to take anything away from prasadam distribution, but I'm hoping that we can distribute some books on Saturday. So if anyone wants to join, please keep an eye out for that.
It's very easy to distribute Bhagavad Gita. Sorry. Okay, Advaita Prabhu, and then I think we are done.
Speaking about Holocaust, I heard that even these German officers, in order for them to normalize the level of violence, they used to have dogs with them, and they used, from a puppy, the dog would live with him, and then when after years of training, the officer was involved in the Holocaust, by protocol will have to kill that dog just to develop that callus, to normalize and to desensitize himself from. It's staggering to what extent the human consciousness can degrade and become cold and compassionless.
Do we have time for one more? Shruti? Okay, Nita? Oh, Max?
Couple quick things. In response, there's a book called The Higher Taste. It's a cookbook, but in the introduction, it provides a lot of science as to why we're meant to be vegetarian. Like it compares our bodies to dogs. The teeth that we have, the digestive tracts that we have, and it suggests that even makes the claim that 98% of the heart failure cases in the United States could be avoided with a vegetarian diet. So numbers like that are pretty cool here. But I have a question too, and that question is, all the prajas, the citizens of the state, have an equal right to be here even if they're not human. My question is, if you're in your room and there's a spider, you can kill it. You kill it if it's bugging you, it's sucking your blood.
I feel like Prabhupada said something about that actually. Yeah, yeah. That's like what we were saying. Violence is just feeling it's not doing anything. It's just kind of in your space. Just try and get it out instead of killing. But yeah, like Gopi said, if it bites you, Hare Krishna. Did you want to add anything? No? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.